What?
You just chug?
Come on in. Whoa. It's way too close.
All right, so we're live. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to kind of fill in. Usually takes a few minutes, so I'll probably play that thing again just like last time because we made it and we'll show it. But it looks like some people are starting to show up. Yeah, so thanks for joining. Give us a few minutes here to let people fill in. We have some new faces on that you may or may not know if you're a big fan of the craft beer world. These guys are pretty big studs in that industry. We got Jeremy on again, Paul, and we have Connor from our team. Just give us like 30 seconds, and we're gonna start this thing going. So make sure if you have any questions throughout, throw them into the comments. We'll put them up, we'll answer them, and give us any feedback. We love all feedback on these things, like what you think we're doing well, what you think we're not doing well, and it'll help us create a better content for you guys. And yeah, thanks for coming on. Looks like it's starting to fill up, so let's play this thing one more time. It was pretty fun, and then we'll get started. All right.
Come on in. Whoa. It's way too close.
All right, now it's looking pretty full. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. This is Virtual Happy Hour with the brewery, and today we have Derek from Moksa, Mike from Mikerphone on. So today we're going to talk all things pastry stouts. We're going to drink through a couple of the pastry stouts from the virtual pack that was on thebrewery.com earlier this week. We're going to taste through them. We're going to introduce these guys, let them tell a little bit about what they're doing, and then I don't know if it's the first ever, but if you stay tuned, we're going to do a real-time live virtual collaboration beer. So we're going to take your input. We're going to talk through kind of what we want to do together, and we're going to create a beer on air. So it should be pretty fun. I think it'll be a good time. So we'll start off like we always do. In case you don't know some of these guys, we're going to go around, introduce ourselves. So just a couple things. Tell us who you are, what you do, and if you have a pet, what kind of pet is it, and what's its name? And Andrew, start things off, man.
All right. Yeah, Andrew Bell. I'm the innovation manager at the brewery. Basically, I get to play around on our pilot system, come up with all the new beers that we do, almost all the new beers that we do. Basically, just play around with ingredients, flavors. Pet, you said?
Yeah. What's your pet's name?
I have a little cat around here named Daisy. She's pretty cute, but pretty timid as well. So, yeah, I have a small cat that made it onto the can that is somewhere behind me that we did the Cats and Dogs series from Offshoot. So, yeah.
Cool. Connor.
What's up, everybody? I'm Connor. Kind of wear a lot of hats, but my main thing is handling the website. So not your hat, Jeremy, but making sure that that everybody can access our beer, that memberships keep rolling the way you want them to, no hiccups. Just kind of behind the scenes, managing the website. Pets, I've got a Jack Russell Terrier named Jazzy, and a little mutt. I think it's a terrier named Speedy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jeremy, Director of Production at the brewery. Thanks for coming back and hanging out with us tonight. I don't want to say too much. I'd like to hand it over to Mike and Derek. We'll hear about them. Cheers, everybody.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Mike Palin, owner and founder of Mikerphone Brewing, located in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago, Illinois, near O'Hare Airport if you fly into Chicago every once in a while. I do not have any pets, but I have 2 kids. I have a daughter named Lily and a son named Miles, and they keep me, along with the brewery, entertained very often. So that's good enough for now.
My name's Derek Galanosa, head brewer at Moksa Brewing Company. We're over in Rockland, which is just outside of Sacramento. As far as pets, we have 3 dogs and a tarantula. So we got 2 pugs, Bernie and Pearl, and then a mutt named Hazel, and then our tarantula is named Princess Buttercup. So and she's like 14 years old, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, that's as far as day-to-day over at the brewery. It's not only managing or helping manage the brewery, the back end, but also, I mean, now we're shipping like crazy. So I'm helping with that, sales manager, as well as do all the marketing and social media and the membership as well. So wear a lot of hats.
Derek, where can people go to get Moksa beers online if you're shipping?
Just go to our website. So it's at our store. We have right now 3 different cans, 9 different crawlers, and in a couple of weeks we're going to drop 4 more cans and more crawlers along the way. Just we don't have our own packaging line, so we have to kind of group multiple beers together, can them all, and then in between, when we can't have a beer make the can run, then we'll just put that in crawlers and send it out. But yeah, we are not stopping production. We're actually making more beer than last year. We're just finding new avenues to sell it.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to start drinking. But before we do that, there's a really great question I want to pull up. Connor, what the hell is going on behind you, dude? What is that? I know you just put that up for this. What is that?
I just bought it. I just found it. It's 2013-14 Manchester City Premier League title, their second title.
There we go. So we answered all the important questions.
I also saw Keith said I'm an LSU fan. He knows that's not true. I pull for the real Tigers. Go Clemson.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna start opening some stuff. So let's start with Hold the Spoon. So this is a release that just went public today. It's a collaboration with Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams. They basically sent us a bunch of ice creams. We tried to emulate our favorite one, which ended up being Blackout chocolate cake. And so let's kind of start off. Jeremy, you and Bill actually both probably good guys to talk about what is this, and then we'll go around, kind of talk about what we're getting off of it, and then we have another fun question to ask everybody. So who wants to take this one, Bill or Jeremy?
Well, I'll start it off and hand it over to Bill. I mean, Bill obviously worked on all the pilot batches for this, and got us to the point where we can scale it and turn it into a production brew for distribution. But I'll just talk about the collaboration part of it and with Jenny's Ice Cream, and Jenny's Ice Cream is I don't know how you say it, like a real fancy ice cream purveyor. I'm not much of a fancy ice cream guy. I like Thrifty's ice cream. But when Jenny sends us, a big box with dry ice in it, and you got these absolutely gourmet and culinary flavors in there. It kind of suits our fancy, if you will. And Andrew and I were just talking about this earlier on the phone today, that a lot of times we're very much at the brewery anyway, very much trying to replicate flavors of things that we like, and so when you'll see a lot of our beers when we, pastry stouts or whatever, we're actually trying to make a pastry, we're trying to replicate that. And we take that approach with a lot of things, and this beer is no different. So it really was like, we have this really, really bitter chocolate ice cream. Like how do we bring that across in a beer? And there's some there's some process practices that allow themselves to to bring out more bitterness in chocolate or whatever type of chocolate or cacao that you're using. But I mean, 2 cents to start it off, but I'd really love to hear Andrew share about this beer.
Yeah. No, it's fun. So I think it's been mentioned before. This is like our second collab with Jenny's and kind of trying to replicate their flavors. Their ice creams are phenomenal, but a lot of them are texture driven, which I don't really feel safe. Like you guys know, like actually putting something that's like crunchy or something like that into a beer package, into a can, that doesn't work out too well. But yeah, a lot of their stuff have mix-ins that are that have like pretty intense flavors and textures that kind of make their ice cream even more elevated. So that's kind of like a challenge that we've had to deal with before. But there've been like 4 ice creams from them that we loved and loved the idea of making beer concepts out of. The first one, which we did last year, was like a salted peanut butter chocolate ice cream that we did with a blonde base. That was pretty fun. And then we've wanted to do their sort of flagship. It's called Brambleberry Crisp, I think it's called. And it's like a very intense vanilla ice cream with like blackberry and black currant swirl and like granola in it. And it's fucking amazing. But both like the texture and the extreme amount of fruit makes it like really hard to do as like a distro product, which this beer is. And then there was another fun one we tasted this year that was I can't remember the name of it, but it was yogurt based and it was like blueberry and lemon and vanilla, and it was really cool. I could see that working well in like we don't do kettle sours, but in like a sour beer. But this, like the intensity, they do a couple different chocolate flavors in their Blackout, which would not make a good name for a beer, but their Blackout chocolate stout, like it just was intense, like bitter, like biting on a nib, which obviously we're used to using nibs quite a bit, but we wanted to get a little bit more of a complex chocolate character. So the sort of chocolate split for us on this was using defouted cocoa powder in addition to using cocoa nibs, and then using vanilla. And then one thing I've noticed, like when we're tasting all their ice creams back to back, is if you think about it all, they're pretty salt forward. So that's the reason why we added salt. Like all their ice creams, they don't taste it when you're just like eating it, but if you're like trying to analyze it, you can definitely tell there's like pretty heavy salinity. So that's sort of the idea behind this, like getting lactose and getting 2 different types of chocolate flavor to get like more of like a baking flavored chocolate, using the cocoa powder, getting the bitterness from the cacao nibs, and then vanilla always sets off chocolate.
What kind of salt did you use in there?
I think it was just Himalayan sea salt, which is what we usually just keep around. From using it in Goes as a Red, we usually have a lot of pink Himalayan salt, not pink green salt. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, I use that as well. Found that to be the best tasting in beer.
Yeah, it works out well. The reason we used it initially is because it was pink for a pink beer, but it works out pretty well.
All right, so we're gonna
8.5%. This is a session stout for you guys, right?
Yeah, this is let's point out this is the lightest beer we're talking about tonight is 8.5.
Yeah,
that's why we started with it. So let's go around.
Yeah, you drank 6 or 7 of these.
We're gonna start with Derek this time. So we're gonna ask an important question, and then any thoughts you have on the beer or any pastry stouts in general. But so Derek, what's been the best use of your time in quarantine, and the worst use of your time in quarantine? Just being kind of stuck at home. Like, what are you up to, dude? What do you feel productive about, and what do you feel kind of like, I probably should be doing something else?
We're actually like production hasn't stopped. In fact, it kind of ramped up trying to get beer out there. We normally just sell our beer in the tap room. So with opening up online shipping, we just kind of opened up way more customers than we're used to. So we got a good demand going on with the online shipping thing going on. So we're not stopping production. We're trying to turn out more IPAs, more canned product, putting more beer in the barrels. But we do have a little bit more free time now that the tap room's kind of slowing down, and just shipping beer is a lot faster. So I've been just catching up on stuff like hop contracts and like seeing what ingredients we need to order, compliancy with registering our beers, which is the most boring part of my job. But you know, you gotta catch up on those. And then I would say the worst time is today cleaning tanks. It's like I gotta do something around here. All right, let's scrub some tanks, shine them up. Even though we have no guests, so it makes no sense. But you know, killing time.
Yeah. Makes it easier to clean it the next time too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. If you have any sensory notes or anything you want to say about the pastry stout movement in general, go for it. Otherwise,
for hold the spoon or just pastry stout in general.
Either. Say what you want to say, man.
Good question.
It's.
I know it's a big question.
What are you getting off of hold the spoon then? Let's go with that.
No, I think it's very deep and rich in flavor. Yeah, I was tasting it. I was like, oh man, this is drinkable. And then I looked, it's only 8.5%. I was expecting it to be a nice like 16% or like I'm used to drinking from these guys. But no, it's big and rich. It's like you can't pinpoint whether it's bitter chocolate, whether it really does taste like a chocolate cake. And it's lasting. I think the vanilla really pulls everything together. So yeah, didn't have 5 other beers and stouts in front of me, I'd probably drink the whole thing. So it's a good one.
Cool. Here's a quick question for you. Are you allowing pickup or just shipping?
We're actually doing both. So you could just to make it faster. If you do want to pre-order, we have an option to, when you select a beer on our website, to select pre-order, and we'll have it ready within an hour, or we can ship it out to California. So we're only shipping within California. It's going overnight through Golden State overnight, and it's reaching customers still cold, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, we're doing both, or you could just pop into the tap room and place your order. But we prefer that you pre-order, so it just makes the transaction a little bit quicker. We don't crowd the tap room.
Cool. Mike, same question, and any notes you have on the beer?
Yeah, same with Derek. You know, we were deemed essential, and it's been one of those things where we had to kind of just pick up and pivot and move and adjust right away. Unfortunately, we had to let go of a few staff, but they're actually doing better than they were working. I mean, their unemployment has done well for them, and they're doing good at home. We did a lot of things to raise money for them, so they have been taken care of. They're still taken care of with insurance and all that. But you know, we're on a skeleton key crew here, and we're working our tail off. And I think haven't worked this hard in years. But it's fun to kind of get back into it. You know, I'm brewing again. I'm on the packaging line. I'm ordering labels every day. I'm tracking packages every day. But it's just one of the things where we're continuing to move. And like Derek said, we are making more beer and packaging more beer than we ever have. Usually we operate here at 60% draft, 40% package. And now it's 100% package, which is just different for us. It's, you know, ordering more labels, not having to clean kegs every other day. It's just been an adjustment, but you know, we kind of all packed together and we've got a plan in place and we've been going through it. But I think the worst thing is like when I had that downtime and I check Facebook and you just see the nonsense that's going on in there. So I've just been trying to just avoid that to stay focused and stay in my lane of continuing to move our business forward and just try to avoid the noise right now. But it's kind of where we're at. You know, we gotta adapt and adjust and get used to this. And for us here in Chicago and Illinois and neighboring states, we're kind of geared up now to do this until June. So, you know, it's going to be the way of normal for a little bit longer, and we just have to get used to it and figure out what we do tomorrow. But it's been a learning experience for sure, but you know, we're getting through, so it's good. We're fortunate enough that we have got, you know, a lot of awesome fans who want to buy directly from us. We've been doing online ordering, which is totally new to us, you know, over the phone ordering, which is totally new to us. But it's worked out well. We've taken safety and, you know, keeping people socially distant at top priority. So it's worked out. But about the beer, with little kids, I often bake cookies with them. So initially, when I first got the first whiff, I smelled raw grain. I just remembered I picked grain for tomorrow, so that's still grain dust and powder all over me. So it's in my beer and everything. But once I kind of got into the beer, I had that kind of that chocolate that you would taste if you ate cookie dough, that raw kind of morsel chocolate. And then as I drank it, I was kind of experiencing the chocolate ice cream melting on the tongue. And then as it lingered and stayed, it was more that baker's chocolate that you guys kind of mentioned. It's kind of got that dry, powdery kind of chocolate to it. And I did kind of pick up on the sea salt. I think the sea salt kind of brings that together because it's something you wouldn't anticipate, but it is one of those ingredients that kind of has the binding that brings the vanilla and the chocolate and everything together in this instance. And as you guys know, like, dissecting a pastry is not just easy as, well, there's chocolate and there's vanilla. There's a lot to it, and figuring that out of how do you want to go bitter, do you want to go sweet, do you want to go this and that. And so I think this at 8.5%, it packs a lot of flavor and a lot of depth. It's still lingering on the tongue. It's great.
Awesome, man. I'm gonna skip. Nobody wants to hear what Jeremy has to say, so I'm gonna skip him on this one. We're gonna go to our resident pastry expert, Connor, and I want to hear first answer the question, and then what's your feedback on what are you getting out of this pastry stout? Give us some. I guess it's not a pastry, it's ice cream, but yeah, give us some feedback here.
Yeah, best and worst thing during quarantine might be all the drinking. On both ends, I get to clear out my cellar a little bit, but I'm also drinking for no reason. No, but really, I think we've done a lot seriously on the website side. We're offering more stuff than we've ever done before. Working from home sometimes feels like you're doing more than when you're in the office. Getting crowlers up, kegs up, setting up local delivery. We've done a lot to keep the website rolling and get stuff into people's hands in ways that they haven't before. As far as the beer, I agree with Mike. I get a lot of especially after it warms up. I think when it was colder, I got more of the sea salt. But as it warms up, I get kind of those like semi-sweet, like chocolate chip flavor. And then you get, it's really kind of deep, dark, rich flavor. I think the texture on it's really, really good too. It's not full body, but you feel some texture there, like Andrew was going for with the ice cream. It does kind of feel a little bit like melted ice cream in some respects. So I think it's pretty cool. I like this one. I think Hold the Spoon last year was great too. But chocolate and a stout, kind of, you can't really go wrong there. I think it tastes great.
Awesome. I think we heard Bell's input last week too. So I know everybody wants to see this collab happen. So we're going to move on to the next beer. So next thing we're going to be tasting is we're going to go through Bakery Oatmeal Cookie. So this is kind of one of our rotating cores. The brewery, we're known for these big stouts. And so these will see distribution. Right now, it's available to the public on our website. Society members have allocations available, but this is the bakery series is somewhat new for the brewery, it's what we're known for, right? So we wanted to get that out there. I think we'll do the same thing. We'll start with Bell this time. Not to put you on the spot, this is a tough one, but before you talk a little bit about the beer and the history, I know we did a little bit of this last week, so maybe just give some more sensory notes. But what are the top 3 songs in rotation on your playlist right now, dude?
Oh man, not really. I don't really have songs that are on my playlist. I've been using like Spotify, like music for you or whatever, like explore new things. I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of like hardcore, just as like a genre, and then also like sort of gritty outlaw country type thing, which I hate country music usually, but like outlaw country I'm kind of into for some reason. Don't know why. But yeah, just in general, like that sort of stuff. There's actually a kind of a weird mashup of what I was just talking about. There's a hard rock metal band called Devil Driver that I think it was a year or two ago released a bunch of outlaw country covers, and it's actually pretty cool. I think, and then they bring in a bunch of guests to sing on it, like I think Hank Williams III is on one of them. And then, like Johnny Cash's son sings on another. It's cool, whatever. Anyway, enough about music. Although Mike actually could probably talk about music for quite a while.
Mike's definitely getting in on this question for sure.
Yeah. But the beer, so the beer bakery in general is sort of the same base as the other previous bakeries, blended with some barrel-aged components. Stout included. This one has a bit of our anniversary beer in it to get a little bit more caramel sort of flavor to it. Raisins in it. We've used some granola. to sort of get that a little bit more of that sort of cookie flavor. Unfortunately, the granola apparently had vanilla extract in it, so that's why there's natural flavors on the can label, which kind of annoys me. That was our compliance, but yeah, but it's Bob's Grainwell or Red. I can't even remember what it's called. Bob's Grain granola stuff.
Bob's Red Mill.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then raisins and cinnamon, and yeah, just trying to get the flavors of an oatmeal cookie and a distro stout where you just throw a bunch of stuff in it. But
only 10.2, so it's still sessionable, right?
Say what?
Only 10.2, so still on the session side.
Yeah, exactly. But no, just trying to get the flavors of an oatmeal raisin cookie without throwing in, as we've said before, a bunch of oatmeal raisin cookies. Trying to get the flavors without actually adding the actual ingredients. So, yeah, I think that's all I got to say on this right now.
Awesome. Let's go to Sour J, the guy everybody wants to hear from. First of all, songs, and then what are your sensory notes on this? My dog's going wild, so I'm going to mute myself. They're both going wild. But Jeremy, tell us what's happening here.
Yeah, speaking about the beer first. So Bakery is it's a distro product for us. It's something that we kind of circled up. It's probably been 2 years ago now where we decided we wanted to get a canned pastry stout in a broad distribution market. We wanted it to have barrel character. We wanted it to be barrel aged. We had all these desires of things we wanted to do, and we also wanted to deliver it at a price point that would see it actually pull through retail. So pretty rare for us to have what is it, an $8 can, Daniel? Is that correct? Yeah, so $8 can that's in broad distribution, that's seen barrels, it's had adjuncts. So where the tricks come in for Andrew Bell and the rest of the team, because it is definitely a team effort, is where do you cap the cost of goods? Where do we cap on like how much what we want to do with this beer? And so basically we find it where it fits, and where the concepts don't fit, those are our other beers that we produce, and we really spend the money on those. So this is part of the way I make beer, and part of the reason I'm saying this, and I think this beer fits that is, our goal is to over deliver on price point, right? Like we want somebody to grab a $5 beer, a $10 beer, or even a $50 beer, drink it and be like, holy shit, like I would have paid X for it, or it tastes like this $8 can tastes like a $12 can.
All right, I think we're losing.
They're gonna recognize your quality. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Favorite.
I think we lost you, dude.
We lost Jeremy. All right, so let's
go to the Wi-Fi, man.
Yeah.
let's go to Mike. Mike, everybody wants to hear what your top 3 songs are. What's going on there, man?
Yeah, it's I don't know about just songs, but one of the things that we've been doing with the kids during quarantine is showing them music videos, be it current music videos or classic music videos that they need to listen to. And one of them that they keep having me play over and over again since I showed them was Junior Senior Move Your Feet or Move Your Body. And if you haven't seen the video, it's freaking hilarious. I mean, those guys, Junior Senior does such a good job with that whole kind of 8-bit kind of vibe, and the song's hilarious and upbeat and fun. And the kids have been wanting to listen to it 3 or 4 times every night. So that's been one of the songs in rotation. We listen to a lot of music here, obviously. We've got, a fairly decent-sized staff that has different thoughts on what music is, which is great. It kind of just expands our horizon. But for me, a lot of it's dance. A lot of it's, old rock and pop. And then anything in between. But the format, about a month ago, or was it about a month ago, the format had released that they were going to come back out on tour. It's a band that's broken up forever. So we've just been throwing that back on the radio. And then the third one. I mean, one of our core beers smells like Bean Spirit. So Nirvana is always rocking in the brewery at some point. So that's kind of, but like we're just pretty diverse. I'm a kid of I was born in the 80s. My music sensory comes from the 90s, so a lot of 90s alternative, 90s hip hop. Got a lot of Snoop and Dre here every day. And then DaBaby is probably my favorite new rapper right now. So we just did a beer called Switch the Flow. I think he's got that flow that's it's catching. So it's kind of where I'm at with the music right now.
Awesome. Here's a cool question for you. Mike, I saw a Mikerphone Stout on Tavour a couple weeks ago. Does that mean anything about distribution happening out west?
No, actually, are you guys all on Tavour? No?
We've had a few beers on Tavour.
It's been a conversation that I've been having with them for years and years and years and years. And, they're seem like a great company, and we finally decided, let's give it a shot. And so we wanted to throw a beer out there that was kind of one of our core beers, and Imperial Bean Spirit was the fit. And so we threw that up there, and the feedback was phenomenal. And so we will be looking into doing more through Tavour as the time goes on and as our production increases. But it's kind of, right now it's a Wild West. I mean, we're moving more beer than we ever had before. So we don't have a lot to go out to have access. We can do it. We will definitely be doing it. So I'd love to see Imperial Bean Spirit get out there more often, and then Mikerphone Check 1 2 get out there through Tavor's channel.
Here's a good question really quickly. Who is Connor's favorite rapper?
I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of rap. I don't judge. I don't have any problem listening to it. I just, don't go out buying CDs. I don't know. Do people still buy CDs? I don't listen to music a lot.
What year are you in, dude?
The number one song on my playlist right now is the Netflix sound when you're scrolling through, finding something to watch.
Cool.
He's got a little Action Bronson going on. I can see it there.
It's finally something that Connor won't judge.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true.
I don't judge everything.
Nah.
Cool. All right. Let's move on. I know everybody wants to see this collab happen, so let's keep going. Last beer, and a beer we're releasing today to the public. It's available on our website. There's a lot of history to this beer, so maybe we start with this. But the next beer that we're opening is going to be Sticky Chunk. Let's start with some history. Maybe Bell and Mike, you guys can kind of talk about the beginning, what we did with Icky Thump, how this developed, and just how we've worked together over the last few years to put out some really cool beers. By the way, this one's moving fast, so if you are interested, it's not gonna last very long.
Yeah, this beer's definitely gonna be gone this month for sure.
I mean, I'll let Mike get started on the history of Icky Thump. I mean, he's the one who came up with the name based off back and forth emails about music and stuff like that, and getting that.
I think it goes back even further than that. And you had got my number, but you had sent me a picture of a full vertical of all the bean spirits, and you were intrigued about coffee and how we use coffee, and you had a customer who brought out a suitcase full of all the bean spirits and laid them out, and you guys tasted it through them. And we just started talking off of there. And then it was one of those things where it's hey, let's link up and brew a beer. And for me to brew with you guys is one of those dream come true. So we finally sat down and kind of concepted it. There's something we wanted to do where we could showcase each other's brands at each other's breweries. And the idea was, let's do a big stout. But let's use each other's coffee. So the first round when we did Icky Thump here, we used Portola coffee, which is one of the coffee roasters you guys use. And then out by you guys used our coffee roaster Tugboat. And I think both beers got phenomenal feedback. We both knew right away that we had to throw them in some barrels. And so we did that, you did that. And I was out there, when was that? I forget when I was out there and we tasted them.
I was tasting them was only a couple months ago.
You were out there for Mostra. It was a Mostra.
Yeah. So
I was out there for something. Yeah, but I swung by the brewery, and we tasted through them, and it was funny how every barrel was wildly different. And I think what we decided was that, hey, let's kind of build off of what we're tasting off these barrels and concept something that's not just barrel aged Icky Thump, but let's go a different route and make it sticky chunk. And that's where kind of the whole, chunk, sloth, rocky road kind of came out of it. And this is my first time. I just got the cans delivered yesterday, so I haven't tried it yet, but I'm excited to dive in.
Nice.
But what's cool too is that next week, timing works out pretty well. Next week we're releasing barrel-aged Icky Thump. So we wanted to keep with the whole coffee idea, but use your other coffee roaster, Moksa. So, they're both kind of lining up together at the same time. It'll be fun to see how these kind of play, and who knows if we ping back and forth next year and do the same thing. So,
yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, it was fun. It was definitely fun having you guys out. Yeah, basically, as Mike alluded to, the collab initially was about coffee stouts and kind of seeing how each other did them using our different roasters. And I've loved working with Tugboat. Tugboat gave us some awesome beans, and it was just a really, really good experience. And at the same time, when we were working on it, we decided we wanted to brew a slightly bigger version, put it in a barrel. And Mike decided to, finish it out, do coffee, do basically a barrel-aged version of the original. I think it was Jeremy and I were discussing, like, hey, we have a lot of coffee beers on the calendar right now. Like, let's do something else with these barrels. So when Mike was out here for Moksa's anniversary, tasting through the barrels, we're getting, like, a lot of the barrels had, like, this sort of vanilla, almost marshmallow character to them. A lot of them had, like, this chocolate character to them. A couple were somewhat nutty, and we were kind of going back and forth. Originally, we're like, maybe let's do some a s'mores treatment, but we had just done a couple s'mores beers, so it's like, all right, what else has chocolate, marshmallow, vanilla type stuff? Oh yeah, let's do Rocky Road. So basically, yeah, chocolate, vanilla, some nuts, and yeah, I don't know. I think this came out really well. I'm also really excited to try the barrel-aged version that Mike.
Got to come out. But I just tried it. It's the experience you want out of a Rocky Road stout. It's beautiful. Good job.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
Let's keep moving. I want to get some feedback from Connor and Derek, and then we're going to kind of do an open-ended. We have a few really good questions in the comments, so we'll answer some of those. But Connor, this is your time to shine, dude. This is your space. What's going on in this beer? What are you getting?
I think this beer's great. I get a lot of the, almost more so than Hold the Spoon. I'm sure the barrel character has something to do with that, but you get up front, you get a lot of the, like, chocolate ice cream kind of flavor. Obviously our marshmallows are always on point. I think anytime we put marshmallows and stuff, they're great. Those vegan marshmallows that we use. But I get a lot of kind of whenever we use nuts in beer, I feel like it kind of has this thing on the finish where it gives it a little heat, a little extra heat, like nutty flavor. And I think that really kind of melds well with the finish. It just kind of, you get the really sweet pop up front, but then it dries out as it finishes. I really dig that. I think this beer is great. It's my first time trying it, so I'm really happy with it. It tastes awesome. I think Icky Thump last year, the coffee one, was also awesome, but then throwing this beer into barrel and adding a few more adjuncts to it, it came out great. I think the guys did a great job on this.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, I get the heat too. It is 14% alcohol, which is scary how, I don't know. For me, this is pretty smooth for 14.
Yeah, I agree. I think that anytime though that we've used like nuts and like Melange 15 was one that had like that kind of drying finish where the heat's a little more perceptible at the end, but it's not a bad thing. It's kind of cool. The nut character really shines more so on the back end than on the front.
What's funny is that barrel-aged Icky Thump is our strongest ABV yet to date, which clocked in at 13.68. So pretty close.
Nice. That's appropriate that your strongest would be with
a
us.
brewery beer.
Yeah, exactly. Very appropriate.
Derek, any thoughts on this one? And then if nothing, I think we have a few really interesting questions in the comments, so we'll field some of those and then move on.
No, I'll make it fast. No, this is you guys are killing it with the drinkability of your stouts. I mean, because you get everything in this, and like the cacao. It's more of a bitter chocolate than it is on Hold the Spoon. The almonds, that's my favorite nut to use. It just has this like great nuttiness. It's not like, it really kind of pulls everything together and just has that like kind of like nougat type of taste. And then you definitely get the barrel. It's not overpowering. It's kind of ties it in as like a very strong, like robust beer. But yeah, all the flavors are there, and it's greatly balanced. And good job, guys.
Awesome, thanks, man.
All right, here's a question for all of our brewers here. How do you select the type of barrel you're going to age your beers in? This is probably a really hard question to answer, and I'm glad I don't have to answer it. So who wants to start, man? Somebody.
I'll start. I got we do have a bunch of different barrels, and they're not just spirit barrels, but we also have wine barrels. We really like. We're putting barley wine and stout. It's mainly stout. I'm still getting. Still experimenting with what brands and what distilleries I like, but as far as the different types of whiskey and different spirits and different contents of the barrel, I kind of nailed those down a little bit. So I noticed with bourbon, it's kind of just like what we're all used to. But if you get into weeded bourbon, like a Weller or Old Fitzgerald or something that it produces a little bit of a sweeter character. It really works well with like big boozy stouts. It kind of balances it out. I noticed rye whiskey accentuates chocolate notes. And I got that from using two different distilleries rye. Kind of both brought out the chocolate in the stout base. What else do we use? We have a couple port wine barrels, apple brandy. And really, that just lends the flavor of like some like berry notes. And then with the apple brandy, it's I was really a big fan of like apple brandy, Hunupu, or some of the I think it was Marshall Zukov from Cigar City, and some other like prairie beers with apple brandy. So we got some projects going on with those barrels. But it's more of like the category of whiskey versus it is like different distilleries. But so far, we have about, let's say, 100 barrels filled right now. We only dumped maybe 20, and we have 100 going right now. So we're still kind of young in our barrel age program, and they're just taking a long time because we're putting some massive beers in there that need some age. So right now we're averaging about 18 months before we take them out.
Awesome, thanks, Derek. Who's going next?
I'll go next. So a lot of things that we did early on with barrel aging obviously came from Goose Island being in our backyard. And so when I first went to go get barrels, they were the ones who had extra barrels for me. So they were using Heaven Hill primarily at the time. And I grew to love the marshmallow and vanilla that came from Heaven Hill barrels. A lot of the stouts that we were making were chocolate based, and then had a lot of sweetness to them. And the marshmallow and vanilla really popped off on that. But as we kind of developed this kind of catalog of beers, we're not just putting the same base stout in barrels. We're developing beers and putting them in. And we're looking for things that make sense. And the rye barrels to us have been the most exciting. That rye character just gives it a different layer that really accentuates that a barrel character is present. The Wellers, if we can get them, that's all day. I mean, Weller's my favorite bourbon to drink. Just not as easy to come by. We do have some cognac barrels. We do have some port barrels, some wine barrels. We just released a Malort Pilsner. So it's a Pilsner aged in Malort barrel. We were lucky enough to get the first Malort barrel from CH Distillery. And it took a lot longer than we anticipated. It wasn't as pungent and as strong as we thought. We thought pop it in 2 weeks later, it would come out and be like Malort. But it wasn't. It took a lot longer. And I think what we got out of it is that kind of that initial nose of Malort, and then a really nice smoothness, and then you get some wood character to it, and then it finishes with a kiss of Malort. So if we can get more, I would do it all day. It's one of those things that I've grown accustomed to liking. It's definitely nothing we'd probably use with a stout, but never say never. But yeah, it's just one of those things where we and what I've been learning over as we now have 140 barrels, we used to just put a beer in and pull it down and package it as a one unit. It's more about going through your barrel catalog and picking what makes sense, what blends together better, some barrels are going to be marshmallows. Some going to be more coffee forward or more wood. And if you can find the beers that meld together, the barrels that meld together and make a beer, that's kind of where we're going with this. And so we're hoping to push to 200 barrels at some point and give us that kind of flexibility to pull what we need, and then kind of play from there. So,
yeah, blending's huge. Blending's really, really big for us, especially. I kind of want to let Jeremy talk about like barrels in general for us, but I would love to talk about our bourbon barrels specifically afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think very project specific, right? I mean, we'll create beers specifically for apple brandy barrels, or we'll create beers specifically for rum barrels. But when it comes to bourbon, yeah, I don't necessarily want to list out the number of barrels that we have, but Mike and Derek, you both have been in both of our barrel houses. But when we go and barrel down Black Tuesday, of the say 500 physical barrels of Black Tuesday that we may have, there's probably 10 different spirit barrels in that mix, and there's probably 6 different bourbons and a couple different whiskeys and maybe a Scotch barrel here and there. So I think it's the sum of its parts, and that's the luxury that you have as you build that program, for sure. But what's really cool are those projects that are designed specifically for the barrel. Not to take anything away from the sum is equal to more than the parts, that I think is what Andrew wants to talk about with bourbon and whatnot. But what is really exciting is when you can just nail it from conceptual point, 2 years ago, to be like, we bought these apple brandy barrels, we're making this beer specifically for that. And then it works, because a lot of times it doesn't work, but when it works, it's pretty rad, So barrels are cool. Barrels are fun. And when you have the luxury to play with them, and you can make some really cool things, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I feel like when we're throwing beer into barrels that are not bourbon, usually we have either we're really excited by the distillery that we're getting the barrels from, or we have a specific idea for that project. Bourbon on our clean side is our default barrel to go into, unsurprisingly. And we get them from a bunch of different distillers. I remember when I started working in the brewery 8 years ago, we were very much like Goose Island. I think we actually had the same barrel broker at the time. So almost all of our stuff was Heaven Hill or some sort of Heaven Hill based spirit. So like Old Fitzgerald falls under that brand. Elijah Craig would also fall under that. But yeah, being able to like branch out and getting other distillery barrels, it's fun. And we really rarely do a single bourbon distiller bottling, because definitely I feel there is complexity of blending in various different distillers' products. That said, right now we have a lot of Buffalo Trace in the cellar. We have a lot of less Wild Turkey now than we did a couple years ago, but a lot of Buffalo Trace, a lot of Four Roses, a bunch of different ones. But yeah, in general, like Four Roses are usually, we get them a little bit younger than a lot of the Buffalo Trace barrels, but they're really nice complexities to them. But yeah, Buffalo Trace, especially if you're getting like the bourbon but rye mash too, as well as like the Weller codes, those are usually some of my favorite. But I feel like we get better complexity by blending different barrels together instead of doing like a single run of a single age of a single distillery. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thanks. All right, let's keep going. Here's a fun one, probably a quicker question. What is the? I lost it. There we go. What is the favorite style of each? This is probably another loaded question, but let's say if it's Saturday, you're not working maybe, and you just get to hang out in the backyard, patio, deck, whatever. What are you drinking? Mike, let's start with Mike.
Well, if we're gonna go beer, I am a juicy, hazy New England style guy all day long. I can drink that stuff I know a lot of people can't. People have like a threshold of 2, and then they switch over to lager. I've always loved sweet beers. I actually love drinking our hazy beers off the tank at like mid finishing gravities because I just like the sweetness. So I can drink hazy all day, but if it's not hazy, it's going to be Weller. I'm drinking Weller.
Jeremy.
I'm gonna go. I drink white wine mostly. White wine, Rhone style. That's my thing. Nice acid. I like that. When I'm drinking beer, it depends on how I'm drinking. If I'm drinking 4 or 5 beers, there'll probably be West Coast IPAs or Sierra Nevada Pale Ales. But if I'm gonna drink, I don't want to put a number on it, but more than that, it's probably going to be a lager of some sort. Always prefer a craft lager. I'm a huge fan of the Helles that we produce at the brewery, but I'm also a good old boy, and I love drinking Coors Banquet.
Oh, my turn. Yeah, I think just kind of growing up in San Diego, I was just surrounded by West Coast IPA, so I would say that's my go-to. If I'm not drinking that, I'm either drinking a lager that we produce or High Life.
High Life's not bad. I think I'm more of a gin drinker normally, but if I'm drinking beer, I like to drink seasonally. So stouts in the winter. Something crisp, refreshing when it's warmer. But kind of my go-tos I think are probably Relax, or you can never get enough of the Root Keller Helles. Just a clean classic beer. I think Darren and the rest of the team did a great job on that. The Helles is just so crushable anytime you open it. I love it.
Yeah. I'm a seasonal drinker too, but we don't really have too many seasons in SoCal, so we usually don't get to the stout season all but a couple days a year.
We're on winter number 5 right now, so if you guys want season, come on over to Chicago.
Yeah, no, I think it was like 80 at the brewery today when I was in earlier. But yeah, no, beer wise, I'm usually, I don't know. Everyone loves pills. I really don't drink a lot of macro lager. Like I don't remember the last time I've actually purchased it. And it's not because I'm against it or anything. It's just that I need a little bit more bitterness in my lager in order to find it refreshing. I find like High Life and PBR and stuff like that, I find it a little too sweet without the bitterness. So I like Pilsner, like be it Pivo or something else like that, or our Helles. And then also mixed culture Saison. I think I've said that before. I like brewing it. I like drinking it. I like hoppy beers. I like attenuated hoppy beers, but I also like the lack of bitterness that was typically associated with West Coast IPA. So more of like I don't know what the term would be, like a San Diego style IPA, say like a society IPA type thing. Like huge
SoCal IPA. We termed that a couple years ago. SoCal IPA.
San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego IPA. Any way you slice it, I like that. And then outside of beer, yeah, gin, whiskey, wine.
So everything is what you're saying, essentially.
Almost everything. Almost everything.
All right. All right. I got 2 quick questions. Here's a good one. Mike, how can someone get their hands on, if they can, I don't know if they can, but it's a question worth at least answering.
Yeah, so we are not legally allowed to ship beer. It's actually something we're working on. But with any of those small batch releases, it usually just sells out of here at the brewery. So find a trade partner. I know that as soon as we post it up online, there's always people who are willing to trade beers. So that's the best bet on barrel aged Icky Thump.
Cool. Here's one I'll take. One of the only questions I'll answer tonight. Any plans on expanding local delivery for the West? So good question. We're going to start hitting the South Bay next week. So read your emails. I know we send really long emails, but there's information in them. So just like read through them. Next week, South Bay. So we'll be doing same day delivery to South Bay, starting probably a Saturday from this Saturday. So like 9 days from now. That's happening. And now let's go back to some loaded questions. Somebody say something while I look for a question. Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll say something.
Yeah.
I was gonna just tack on to Mike. I think the best way to get barrel aged Icky Thump is to buy in California barrel aged Sticky Thump and send it to your buddy in Chicago and tell him to send you back the other beer. That's simple. Isn't that what the kids do?
That works.
Yeah.
Or we'll save some sixtels back and send them out to you guys when we get this whole virtual collab up and running and do a little tasting of the how's that sound? Do a tasting over there?
Sounds good to us. Here's a little one. Here's one for Derek. Derek, living so close to wine country, man. You guys are up north. You got all the wineries up there. What's going on with that?
Because we mainly brew strong barrel aged, like we prefer to put like stouts and a little bit of barley wine in our barrels. So we kind of been mainly focusing on spirit barrels, specifically bourbon, and then some rye, some cognac, some apple brandy. So we got a few port barrels going, but nothing. We haven't really dove into the whole wine barrel aged beers yet. But maybe down the road, if we expand, we have extra room. We'll start some fun projects for sure, utilizing our local wine purveyors.
Cool. Here's one for all the brewers. Maybe we just go around again, and then we're gonna do one more question, and then we're moving on. What kind of chocolate do you? This is another loaded question, I'm sure. No, this is easy. What kind of chocolate do you prefer for brewing with stouts?
Nibs.
Open floor.
Nibs. I could go to source, but nibs.
For us, so we prefer nibs. We actually have a local roaster of cacao nibs that goes down to the farms in Central America. They teach them how to farm and how to utilize their crop and try to make the most money they can for them. So they bring back the cacao nibs from those farms. They roast them in their house. I don't know how they can do it, but apparently it's legit. So they do them in their house, probably 10 minutes away from the brewery, and they deliver it warm that morning whenever we use it. And as far as like origins, we just kind of do a little taste test of each one and determine what's best for the kind of profile that we're going for. Some have more like caramel notes, some have more bitter chocolate notes. So we're kind of diving into this past year, like varieties of vanilla, cacao, all these different coffee, obviously. So we're just fortunate to have a local roaster that has this experience, and there's like world-class chocolate. So it's great. So nibs, and then as far as utilizing them, we've been recirculating the beer through the nibs at 1 to 2 pounds per barrel, but we've been doing it cold to not extract too much bitterness. So about 40 degrees we start tasting after 4 hours, and then every 30 minutes after that until we dial in the amount of chocolate that we want.
Are you still using a hotback for that recirc type thing?
Yes. Yeah. So we're using a hotback. So we'll they're freshly roasted, so we kind of trust how sanitary they are. If we use some other purveyor of cacao nibs, then we'll kind of run it and like roast them or toast them in like a wok, basically until they kind of develop some nice aromatics, and then we throw them in our hotback and then recirculate the beer through an external vessel with the vanilla, the cacao, whatever else that we're using in it. And then after that, we push it back into the tank and it's good to go. So no bags of ingredients, and we get to control the agitation, the flow rate, and we can taste along as we go. So it's kind of a good method that I've been using for a while, for years, even when I was brewing back in San Diego. It's just kind of on a different level now with, we actually have a 5-barrel bright tank, or kind of hotback that with a false bottom that we use to treat even things in a 10-barrel bright. So it just fits a lot of stuff, specifically coconut. So
yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, we've used everything from chocolate syrup to baker's powder. What we found the powder is that it really makes the beer messy and you lose a ton of volume. So our favorite is the nibs. We, for a long time we were using Cho from our brewer supply group. We recently, I think in the last 6 months, found a chocolatier in Florida that has just been making some of the best nibs I've ever had. So they'll send them up directly straight to us, and we'll get them in. And same like Derek, we put them in a hot back and kind of rest the beer on there and get it until we get that chocolate that we want, and then move it back into beer and call it a day. And yeah, you gotta work that fine line though, because those nibs can be bitter. And you really have to check what grains you're putting in your stout, your base stout, because it could just impact the overall flavor and taste of that beer if it gets too bitter and too dry. So you got to be careful with that. But yeah, nibs all day.
Why do you think they call them chocolatiers? It's like Mouseketeers, Chocolatiers, Rocketeer. It's kind of weird, you know? Why isn't it a chocolatier?
Musketeer.
The Rocketeer was a great movie. Are you guys Rocketeer fans? That was a really good movie.
Rocketeer was a good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Raconteurs are a good band.
Yeah.
Rocketeers?
Raconteurs?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. It kind of struck me right now. It's correct terminology, but it kind of struck me like, why do they call them that? Like, I don't know. I'll be Googling that later, or if you see me looking off in the distance, that's what I'm doing.
So, somebody says we should start calling ourselves the Brewery Keteers.
No.
I don't know about that.
No. Yeah, awesome. I'll tell you my thoughts on chocolate. They're very simple. I just like the whole game of it, you know. Like we do some distribution stouts, and we do some really high dollar like direct to consumer stouts, and those all require different costing and whatnot. And I think that's one of the things I love about working at the brewery and working with the guys I work with is we take ingredients really seriously. So we're always looking at stuff like, you know, we work with, you know, Cho for years and years and years, and that never stopped us from working with 10 other people at the same time. And I just love checking stuff out, you know, and all the time we find stuff that's just amazing. And then it's like, oh, well, that doesn't fit this project because we can't spend that much money. And then we find something that's costed right where it needs to be. So I've actually learned more about chocolate working with beer than I ever learned eating chocolate. Oh, go figure.
Yeah. And to be honest, something that I've been looking at, and we've been actively like looking at our cacao sourcing, and something I've mentioned in passing to Jeremy. We'll see if this actually happens, but we found a lot of good origins and like whole worlds out there of getting cacao beans. We've briefly mentioned possibly roasting and winnowing our own nibs, maybe for a small like hoarders box project later this year. But I think that would actually be pretty cool. But yeah, no, we've used maybe 35 or 40 different origins of nibs in various projects over the last 2.5 years. So we're going all over the place to source. But yeah, definitely nibs as far as chocolate, and then like freshness of how recently they're roasted. For me, it's huge. Like Cho, we used to, I mean, and maybe this was just bad practice on our part, but like 4 or 5 years ago when we were using mostly Cho, we would order in, you know, a pallet at a time directly from Cho. And then it's like, oh, cool, we have these 9-month-old nibs. And we're not getting huge flavor out of them anymore. And then we went to a different roaster for a while, and we were using small amounts. But basically, freshness for me is the biggest thing with the nibs. But yeah, getting to play with some small origin stuff that at different price points is pretty fun too. And then there's a couple different. Yeah, I could go off on this for a long time. There's a couple different types of cacao beans and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned
it's a big rabbit hole.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it in the comments, but I think last year when we did that Valentine's Day event where you did 6 or 7 different like single origin chocolate treatments. This happens this Tuesday. It was really cool. I mean, you don't realize how much variation there is in chocolates until you kind of taste through a couple different origins. It was really a unique thing that I think people really liked, and it was really kind of fun to do.
Yeah, I mean, origins and ingredients and their form, be it cacao, vanilla, cinnamon, any number of things, mint even. Like, there's so much variation. Yeah, we could have a 3-hour discussion just on that.
We could, and we're not going to do that tonight.
Yeah, let's not do that. Yeah.
We're getting to an hour. I want to keep pushing this forward. So first thing I want to do is I want to thank Connor, resident pastry expert, Senior Manager Society experience. He's a guy a lot of you probably know. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate your feedback. I'm gonna kick you off now. People want
See you guys later.
from Darren.
Keep drinking.
Let's bring Darren on. You're still on, dude. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of you. Sorry. Give me a second here. There we go.
So I actually think it's actually good timing because we want to talk about this collab and how we can make something really cool. But from the segue of talking about cacao, it's actually perfect because that's my 2 cents I want to throw in. I don't want to use cacao.
Can we hold that thought for a second? I want to give Derek and Mike a chance to. So Derek, like a lot of beer fans, like big San Diego name, Carl Strauss, Abnormal. Like you were big down here in SoCal, moved up to Sacramento, doing the Moksa thing. You want to give us a little, just kind of tell us your craft beer story for 2 minutes, if you have a 2-minute spiel, and what you're doing right now. I think people are interested in that, so let's hear it, man.
Yeah, I've been a pro brewer for 10 years. Started with in San Diego, Carl Strauss, and then first head brewing gig over at a Normal Beer Company. That's when I started working with Andrew, and I think we have like 3-4 beers under our belt with between Moksa and Abnormal. But went from there, started making pastry stouts down there, utilizing things I did as a home brewer. And after that, got an opportunity to open up something with some partners over in Sacramento. So that's where we're at right now at Moksa. It's actually the same model brew house. It's a 10-barrel premier brew house. We have 7 tanks, and we've actually been brewing at capacity ever since. Just trying to get as much beer out there. We are kind of tap room focused, so the majority of our beer is sold through the tap room, about 90%. So unfortunately, you guys have to visit us if you want the best chance of buying the beer and tasting the beer. But we're trying to put efforts in to increase our footprint, our distribution footprint, versus just events and tap room. We bought a centrifuge. That was huge for us. And because of that, we're slated to create 30% more beer this year than last year with the same amount of brewing capacity. So we're trying.
Awesome, dude. Mike, same thing, right? Like big home brewer, came from Pipeworks. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Like what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm grew up just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and my dad worked at Miller Brewing in Milwaukee. I really wasn't involved in beer at all. Went to college, and then my junior year, I took a botany class. It was like, hey, either grow a garden or brew a beer. And I was like, duh. So that kind of inspired me to brew beer, but it kind of was shelved until I got a house in 2010 and just wanted a hobby, and quickly created that and started brewing beer and shadowed with Pipeworks and Spiteful and 18th Street, and Drew and I from 18th Street linked up, and I was working with him and helping him on his Kickstarter and brewing with him. And at the same time, like using my marketing background, I started Mikerphone, and then kind of baby stepped and went on my own. And little by little, we got to where we are today, where we just celebrated 5 years total, 3 years in this location back in March 17th, the day before the pandemic hit, which was wild. But we were hovering around 1,000 barrels per year, but this year we're going to crank up to about 2,200 barrels, 2,500 barrels. We brought in a couple more 20-barrel tanks, and we're rocking as hard as we can. But the name of our game right now is just trying to get things dialed in and be consistent and get products out on the regular. Whereas before we were innovating every day, constantly doing new batches. But now it's now that we're 5 years in, kind of having some flagship beers.
That's awesome, man. Cool. So before we get to it, quick thing, new face on the stream, Darren. I'm sure everyone knows you, but in case they don't, there's new viewers. Who are you? What do you do for us? And what is your pet's name? And what kind of pet is it? If you have a pet, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Darren. I'm in title VP Brewing Operations for the brewery. What that actually means is I provide and direction and manage all of the things that go into making sure that our brewers have what they need to make the phenomenal beers that we make. that covers a lot of ground, and I think that sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. But what matters most is what's in your glass, and I know I'm pretty happy with the beers that we're tasting tonight, and it's pretty exciting to be having this conversation and still being able to enjoy beers like this through these weird current events that we're dealing with. My dog is her name is Mila. She's a mutt. We think that she's a cross between a cattle dog and a pointer. She's about 40 pounds on a good day, and she's a sweetheart.
Awesome, man. Okay, so we're going to get to it. I think a lot of you stuck around to see this, but we're going to do – I can't prove this, and if you fact-check me, I might be wrong, but this might be the first virtual digital collaboration beer created live. So what we're going to do is, like, we've been talking about this for a while. We've collabed with both Derek and Mike in the past, I believe. And so what we want to do is I think we're just going to brainstorm, come up with a concept. We'd appreciate if you have ideas. Like, we want you guys to be a part of this too. So if you have ideas, something you want to see, thoughts on what we start talking about, throw them into the comments. We're going to start throwing them up, but I'll stop talking now. Let's let the tastemakers do their thing. And yeah, so collab time. What are we doing, guys? Who wants?
Yeah, I just wanted to do a couple of ground rules.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and kind of like our last little conversation. We're talking about cacao and all the complexities and what we've learned over the years. And Derek's got 10 years of experience, and Mike's had Mikerphone for 5 years plus all the experience before that. And you add myself and Darren, everybody at the brewery, and then we got hundreds of years of experience between everybody with cacao. I just don't want to use cacao. Like, I just don't want to do a chocolate pastry beer. So that's like my thing. Like, I'm happy to add things that I want to do, but I also, like, a lot of times it's really important to throw out the things that you don't want to do and just get those right off the table. Like, that's
So no cacao is what you're saying. No cacao.
No cacao, dude.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw some comments up, and maybe that will get the juices flowing. There's some ideas coming from our viewers. And maybe they're bad ideas, but maybe there's some good ones in there. And then, yeah, let's just talk. Let's talk beer. Let's talk. What are we gonna do? So,
I saw a comment earlier about stroopwafel, and I think Derek, you did one, right?
We did one with it was a brewery with Ruse over in Portland. So we made a stroopwafel beer up there. Yeah, but that actually came out pretty nice. The base was like more crackery, cookie like, and then trying to figure out like the whole caramel aspect of it as well.
Yeah, we did a stroopwafel stout and a stroopwafel milkshake IPA, and they both were delicious, and then also just kind of educate. And that's what I like to do with our stuff, is sometimes educate people on a style or something that we experience on our travels. All of us travel a ton across not only just the U.S. to go collaborate and hang out and brew, across the world to experience.
I think you're the leader, Mike. You're everywhere.
What's the we could call it Friendly Skies. Like, isn't that United's? Like, they serve a stroopwafel or something.
Yeah, yep. That's what I learned about it. Yeah, if there's something that we can educate on or bring to the table from our area of where we're from, I think that would be kind of a good start. And then let's see what the people want.
Yeah. I mean, I'm cracking open another beer right now. This kind of describes where we're from and what we're doing. Again, chocolate.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Southern California. I mean, we're known for having Latin, Mexican influence, and we do a bunch of those beers. But you guys are not from Southern California, at least Derek anymore.
Derek's he's still from.
Yeah.
But he's not.
My heart.
The dude's pretty from SoCal. He flies down just to get a burrito.
I bring him back up.
He's carrying burritos with him on the plane.
Oh man, my wife would be so mad right now. She's from Northern California, and she's like, I can't find a good burrito down here. And she's like,
What?
No, I'll show you. Hold on.
No, she's Bay Area, and she's all about the Mission style burrito. And she's like, people don't do burritos right down here because they're not in like they're not wrapped in like aluminum foil. Like, really?
Yeah, probably that's why.
But also LA's more like for me it's more tacos than burritos. But
This is what I have in my freezer.
nice.
They're microwavable burritos right here, but no, I warm them up in the oven as well. Yeah, those are my whenever I miss home.
Do you vacuum pack them before departure or like when you get home?
No, I don't. After I get home.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I bring them on the plane, nice and warm. Have one on the plane, and then the other 5 or 6, I'll vacuum seal and label and put them in the freezer.
Nice.
So my wife does that coming down from the Bay Area, like opposite way. She brings them and she freezes them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Really.
I don't have a lot to offer on this collab-ish kind of conversation other than making sure it doesn't get messed up.
Yeah.
Like, that's my job. Like, that's all I do is like, what are you talking about? We're not doing that. We're doing what we said we were going to do. But what haven't we – I think one of the fun things about a collab is, you know, it pushes the boundaries of each other's breweries. And, you know, we if it's really working, it's getting something that we don't do from somebody else and offering something that we do to someone else. And so I don't have any strong opinions on what kind of beer it is. I mean, we make any kind of beer under the sun, but what is that for all of us? I don't know.
I think for our collaborations, we just like to incorporate like kind of like the guest flavor. You know, everyone's tasted our stuff at home. Let's have something that resembles and replicates the styles that our guest is doing. So I don't know. As far as what we can offer, it's like, yeah, we do play with a bunch of different.
Can you hit 19%? What can you do?
Yeah, 17%, I guess, not 19 yet.
Well, maybe that's a good question for us to start with. Like, what do you guys like aim for? Like, well, I thought this conversation was mostly about us brewing the beer, but maybe you guys are going to brew it as well. But like, what do you guys like to see for like a stainless steel stout? Like, where do you guys usually find a sweet spot for like ABV and like residual sweetness? Like, maybe let's start with that for you two.
We usually start as far as for a stainless steel non-barrel age, we'll go 32, 34 Plato starting, and then we'll finish it at 12 to 14. But that all depends on what we're going to add post-fermentation or how we're going to treat it. Because like Mike mentioned before, cacao nibs will add bitterness, so we'll coffee add a roast. And so we kind of develop our base recipe to kind of match well with the treatment, the adjuncts that we're going to use, and how strong we want that flavor to be. But generally speaking, for non-barrel age, we do like starting 32, 34, and then going down to 12 to 14 generally. And then we'll kind of go from there.
Yep, right there with you.
Yeah.
I like it thick with a couple C's.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like for our stainless, well, actually, 1 or 2 of the ones we've done recently have been finishing a bit over 10, but usually like 10 for stainless has been kind of our sweet spot, so to speak, recently. But I mean, historically, we've just done much higher attenuation, and we're still trying to figure it out. I think earlier this year, we released our sweet, well, granted, it was partial barrel, but the sweetest beer we've ever released was.
Was that the one I tried when I was out there?
I don't know if it was the banana beer.
No, there was another super sweet beer you pulled from barrels.
Oh,
Monster.
Yeah, that one's a little bit different. But the sweet one we packaged is actually Royal
Street Sweets.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
like a banana Foster beer, and that I think finished at like 16.5, but it had barrel in it. But that's by far and away the sweetest beer we've ever put in package. Which might not be that sweet by some people's standards, but
I'd say let's bump up your guys' sweetness a bit. You know?
Yeah, maybe up to like the 12 to 14.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like we kind of decided.
Darren's like getting all wide-eyed in the background.
I'm fat, man. Like I gotta be careful here.
So like, like from the comments and from what we're talking about, is this a stout? We're making a stout. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I think a barrel aged stout is kind of what we all are.
It's got to be a barrel aged stout, right? Yeah.
Well, I think what we have to do is a stainless beer, and we could follow it up.
Oh, yeah.
We could put half of it in barrel.
I think it should follow, Jeremy. It should follow some of what we've kind of talked about tonight, where there can be two versions, right? Like we look forward to the barrel aged version, but we want to get a beer made that we can all drink soon.
Yeah.
And then typically what we'll do is we'll build that same beer and build it into a wood plan and see it in a year. It's all forward planning, right? So it's both, really.
That's what we've been doing as well for some of our collaborations. Was we make something fresh and then we make a completely different recipe for barrels that actually has a even higher finishing gravity that can take on a various sort of barrel.
So that would be known as a twofer, right? It'd be a twofer. Like you get stainless and the barrel age. So we're gonna.
I'll get 2 quads out of you guys.
That'd be a 6er.
Nice.
One of the comments I saw was a coconut cream pie thought, and I don't know how you pull that off in a stout other than the coconut part. The cream part could be interesting. I think. I don't know if you guys have any. If you were gonna approach that, how would you approach it?
So there. Well, I'll let them answer in a second, but we just had a vendor come through that had they had basically a freeze dried 100 brick coconut water. 100 bricks being like entirely sugar. Yeah, it was the most crazy tasting, just by itself, the most crazy tasting thing ever. Maybe there's some avenue to play around with that. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I'll let you guys answer Jeremy's question about coconut cream.
We recently made a beer and we've just kind of experimented. We want to make a very heavy oatmeal stout, and it actually came out with we used malted oats, and by using about 20 to 30% malted oats. Actually, I think it was a combination of malted and flaked. It had a really creamy kind of ice cream kind of texture just from the base stout. So that's one avenue. Lactose is another. I mean, maybe that combo. But malted oats was like our thing.
Yeah, it's funny. We delved into this whole cheesecake line, and a lot of it comes from Victory Malt and Copper Cara Pills to kind of get that crust off of that, and then graham cracker, and then leverage vanilla and lactose. We use a lot of lactose because pastry stouts are derived from stuff that has lactose or dessert. So a lot of that comes through there. We also started playing with this flavoring that's been really fun to use. That kind of just gives us that element that we couldn't get from anything else. But it's just one of those things that we try to break down what we're trying to make and go through the elements of it. There's a lot of things like you're not going to use cream cheese in the beer. It's not going to happen.
Well, we just did.
Then you guys are.
You can find pretty much anything these days dehydrated. So we've.
All right. So there you go.
Dehydrated cream cheese powder.
My point was you got to find out what you want to break down of it, and then find out resources to how to make it. So
Sorry for the bad news. We got that.
we done that.
That's like banana. Banana is there's many different routes to go down banana. There's freeze dry banana. There's banana puree. There's these wild Thai bananas. It's just like, what are you going for, and how do you want to use it, and break down what you're going for the end result.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we for another project a while back, we were trying to source like a bunch of banana stuff, and we got puree, freeze dried, a bunch of different stuff, and then we got this one concentrate in that just reminded me so much of like Bananas Foster because it was a concentrate, so it was caramelized just by its process, and that is the entire reason why we made a Banana Foster beer, because the product we got tasted like caramelized banana. So build an entire beer around the raw material that we got in. So
what do you Andrew, have we ever played around with that Ireland Malting Company? Is it Ireland Malting Company, the stout malt? That stuff's real nice, and the idea that I think Derek put out a heavy oat, like a real heavy oat combination of oat malt and maybe that Ireland stout malt. You could build a real interesting base that would really differentiate from a lot of the other things we're doing right now from a stout perspective. And then you guys are the experts on the adjuncts. So, then you kind of see where that beer is going and decide how to complement it. That's where my mind goes. Let's talk about the base wort and then and some fun things to do there.
I forget. Do you guys have a mash press or no?
No, we're a traditional single infusion ladder. That's it.
We did a collab with Modest and Surly last year, and they had Modest had a mash press, and they were able to take oats and mash the oats and make oat milk, and that added cool complexity to the beer. We've now been buying it through nuts.com to get the oat milk because we don't have a mash press here, but oat milk adds another layer to the oats and the malted oats and the flaked oats and everything we use. But it's a fun way to get to it.
Use oat milk as sparge water.
Yeah, baby.
I'm sure we could get in drums.
Just pump it through the sparge.
Yeah,
well,
I really like talking about the oats and the oatmeal. Like I like that direction for base. I think sounds good.
Yeah, we use the oat malt just because it's husked and it just helped with a huge mash lautering. Imagine using 20% flaked in that. That'd be a nightmare.
Yeah. No, oat malt can be really nice.
30% base and 70% oat malt and oats. And our efficiency was actually pretty good today. So yeah.
And 12% rice hulls by weight.
Oh yeah.
By weight.
All day.
By weight.
Yeah, I mean, it turns into you get into a little bit of a nightmare scenario, but I think what this conversation is about is like, hey, what's the crazy idea, and then how do we execute it? And I'm just thinking about like the oat milk avenue, and like, can we generate an oat milk on our production system? No, but Andrew, can we generate an oat milk out of the pilot system and then pump that into the production system? I don't know. Maybe we can.
Anything's possible with enough effort. That's kind of our backdoor model, so to speak. Like we'll do anything to make it work. It's
right.
Is it possible to do that on the pilot system? Yeah.
To me, it sounds like oatmeal stout base.
Yep.
We start there, start building the mouthfeel and body based off of that, and where are we trying to drive it to? Like,
sounds like there's
lactose. Setting the foundation. Pardon?
Sounds like there's probably lactose in there too, given what Mike and Derek were saying.
No, absolutely. Like you need that creaminess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of hooked on that coconut cream pie thing. I don't know.
Coconut's always a nice sell.
Yeah, right.
Coconut and vanilla.
Right?
Have you been using any freeze-dried dairy products, Derek?
Freeze-dried? No. Like you were saying, the cream cheese.
Oh yeah,
we tested it out, but it was kind of weird. I mean, it tastes like you have frosting on it.
Yeah, we've been playing around with that, like freeze-dried heavy cream, freeze-dried or dehydrated milk for various things. I don't know. There's some stuff we've been playing around with. Basically, the dried milk is more for like a Vietnamese iced coffee thing. But yeah, we've done heavy cream. We've done yogurt, like freeze-dried yogurt powder. Like it's all sorts of weird industrial dairy dehydrated products that are made mostly for baking again, but they sell them.
No, powder hasn't been our friend lately. We just opened up the bright tank and there's still powder in there.
Actually, the only time we had
you got to mix it.
We recirculate it. We do everything. Yeah.
The only time we had off-flavored beers was when we used powder.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the dairy powders are better off hot side because you get some weird stuff if you're adding cold side.
Right, so-
And also, just I know Darren's was questioning when I first brought in some of these things. It's like, what the fuck is that going to do in a can? like is that stable?
That's my job.
No,
like
that's
that's
a very valid question. Very valid question.
it's a combination of it being my job and also just like old ghosts of making one beer for the first 8 years of my career that goes down smooth, no hiccups. I'm still learning so much from you guys that are willing to do anything, like put cream cheese in beer. It is a learning process. But yeah, we do, like, I think that's actually something fun to talk about because, one of the things that like I said, I'm learning on and that we pride ourselves on is pushing these boundaries. So when we say like, Andrew, you made a beer with cream cheese, like, we don't take that lightly. Like that was like it's kind of crazy. And I think it's cool that it is your job to see, like, okay, is this actually viable? Like, what products am I going to research and use? And that's what you do. And what I do is what? So,
Yeah. It works out well though.
So I think we've got some direction. Let's Sour J, can you recap kind of like where we feel like we're going? Let's
yeah, I think we're gonna do a stout. We're gonna use a shit ton of oats. We got to figure out that part, but the whole deal is the dry mouthfeel. I like the oat milk that Mike was talking about. Is that right? Mention that, and like, I don't know if we could either purchase to do an adjunct or if we leverage Andrew's system to try to experiment a little bit and grab that. Personally, like, I love Derek's coconut beers. I think they're fucking fantastic, and I think that would fit right in our where we're at right now. So I'm kind of leaning towards that coconut cream pie. We try to figure out mouthfeel based on grain as much as possible, and then we adjunct that with creaminess, whatever the hell that means.
Vanilla.
Oat milk or
Vanilla, always vanilla.
dairy powder. Well, that's vanilla is a perception, right? So we want to get it there, and then we want to finish with that, like, the perception of sweetness, the perception of creaminess, all those things that are building on a layer of flavor that we already built in it. And I think we should carry that all the way through and keep it really cool. But to me, I think coconut cream pie stout, and we figure out how to make that happen.
that sounds good.
I always have a challenge, let's figure it out.
And I almost wish it was that Fugen waffle or whatever the hell you guys are talking about. Strudel waffle?
Coconut cream stroop waffle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I like that Friendly Skies name.
Cinnamon, vanilla, maple.
Yeah.
Come
Caramel.
fly the friendly. Come drink the Friendly Skies.
coconut stroop waffle.
I also think like for naming, like I don't know, like something like Absentia would be kind of cool, because as much as like I want to come visit Mike and I want to come visit Derek, and as much as you guys want to come visit us, like we just can't, but that shouldn't stop us from making something that we would want to make together, and that shouldn't stop us from,
brewed in placentia.
yeah, that shouldn't stop Derek from making it up there. It shouldn't stop Mike from making it in Chicago. It shouldn't stop any of us from putting it in barrels and seeing if it becomes the same thing next year or if it becomes something totally different. I mean, it could be fun, it could be really fun a year from now to sit back and drink beers together and reminisce about, that time that you got to see the plants in my backyard and, I hear all my wind chimes that are embarrassing, that keep me up at night, but I just absolutely love them, so.
Well, Jeremy, maybe like there's a little bit of an explanation here, like as to why we kind of wanted to keep the collaborative efforts going, but we shape a lot of these efforts that people don't see around those interpersonal connections. And, so I don't know, we had our anniversary party coming up. Obviously we have some bad news around that, which I think everyone was expected, but still didn't want to hear. And we did our best to hold out as long as we could. But some of these conversations take place around that time. And I don't know. I just kind of a good platform, but
yeah. Well, I'm personally glad, Derek, that you were able to join us tonight. Mike as well. It was like super cool seeing you guys and talking beers, and I look forward to following up with you guys after this on email and just being like, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what we want to do. Are you guys on? Are you on board?
It is weird not seeing each other every weekend. You know, we do see each other so often. You guys are our family on the road, and I honestly have seen you guys more than I see some of my best friends.
Yeah, that's true.
We built that relationship where if we do have an issue, we can rely on each other, help each other out. And it's been a weird month not to be able to go on the road and
yeah.
Realize
they got to keep guys like us apart, you know. If I saw you, I'd give you a hug and share a glass of beer with you. You'd be like, taste this. You'd be like, yeah, let me taste that. You know, like
it's not a good idea right now.
It would be spreading.
Sounds like we have some general direction. For sure, you can expect to see this out of the brewery's facility. Not to put you guys on the spot, but I don't know. Is there a microphone, and is there a Moksa version of this beer? Like, what are we thinking here?
Yeah, I think that's what made the beauty of how Icky Thump came about. You know, it was like we each had our own version, and people were excited to try each version. Why not, right? Let's have this be a three-way try.
Well, Mike also lost the bet. He has to come over and do it. So you might as well just make it.
What was the bet?
It was the NFC Championship. So
my Packers lost.
Green Bay and the Niners.
Yeah.
So Niners won, so he has to come over and brew over here. So
yeah,
I think we got our beer that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys could join us when he comes over.
Yeah, do that. We'll brew by you, brew there, and then come on to Chicago whenever you guys can. We'll do it all here. So
this is going to free up soon. We're going to be back. We're going to be back to doing what we want to do. I feel that way. I mean, I think like I actually think California is doing really well on the curve. Like from the news that I'm seeing, I think we've been responsible out here, and I know we have been as far as the brewery goes. Like we've been doing everything we can to stay operating and be responsible. But let's be honest. Like we're gonna get itchy here pretty soon, and especially us beer makers and drinkers. We're gonna get together.
Yeah, Itchy Thump, dude. Itchy Thump.
There it is.
So we're gonna start wrapping this thing up. Mike, Derek, thanks for joining us. If you guys have a few minutes, one of the fun things at the end is we just kind of do. Just ask us anything. Like, it doesn't have to be about beer. Throw your questions into the comments. We do like 3 or 4 questions. If you guys can stick around and want to do it, totally cool. If you got to take off, thanks for being on. I think this was like probably the coolest episode we've done so far.
I got a couple. I could do a couple questions.
All right, let's do it. I can't find this question, but I saw a few questions related to this. Regarding, I think there's some ties between cigars and beer, and we probably saw like 4 or 5 questions going on in the comments about like a big stout, like how do you pair that with a cigar, or what have you ever brewed a beer specifically like after smoking a cigar to pair with a beer? So I'm not a big cigar smoker, and I'm also not a brewer, so I have no contribution to this, but any thoughts from any of you guys on just the relationship in general, even if it's not specific to like a beer, but just that sensory relationship?
Yeah. Do you want this, Derek, or you want me to go?
No, go ahead, Mike.
With a cigar is kind of an experience, right? It takes some time. You're not just inhaling it and then done. You're hitting it, you're puffing it out, you're experiencing it. So you want a beer that kind of matches that. Something that's not just a slammer, something that's going to open up as you experience your cigar and take that time with you. So I think most of the time, a big adjunct stout is a good fit. Something that's got a lot of depth to it, something that will develop with warmth and with time. is the way I usually do it. I mean, it's also why like bourbon is usually good with that too, because bourbon opens up, and even wine will open up. But for us with the beer side of things, it's usually a big stout in my preference.
Is that what it was? What style of beer or so?
It's really just kind of, I think it's open ended into like, what's the relationship there? If you have a preference, like, what do you like to pair? How do you go about pairing? And then if you've ever specifically smoked a cigar and been like, this inspired me to brew a beer that would go really well with this cigar.
Actually, I've done a lot of food and beer pairings. I think Andrew and I made a beer. It was like 5 years ago or so for a beer dinner, a fine dining beer dinner, and I have the same approach. And basically, you got the beer, or you got the food or cigar in this case, and you want to have something that's complementary. You don't want to have one that overpowers one another. Matching flavors. So really, you'd want to just kind of evaluate each side, or I guess in a cigar, how robust is it? How spicy is it? What flavors you have going on, and just kind of design a beer that will complement it and not necessarily overshadow it or really compete with it. I'm not a big fan of overlapping flavors during a pairing. It's more of complementary or contrasting, or just kind of having that different experience where you taste the beer, you taste the cigar food, and you try them together, and they create new flavors different from each individual's components. So it's really just kind of evaluating what like sensory experiences you're having, and just kind of matching them up with complementary experiences from the beer.
I think
Legit, Darren's got something to say.
No, the only thing I was going to say is like I think there's a lot of beers that we all make that would complement, cigar better. I enjoy a cigar now and then, but I'm not an aficionado. But one thing that comes to mind that actually Keith, our production manager at Brewery Teru, was really proud of was the Oud Fumé project, which was a smoked beer that was in our last hoarders box, and that beer was Jeremy might be able to help on the description here, but it was one of our sour bases that was spiced or infused, if you will, with smoked oak staves that Keith made in-house and infused them into the beer, and that beer, when we were tasting it, like I'm a fan of smoked beers. They can be polarizing, but if that wasn't a cigar beer, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that beer. Keith did a great job on it, but it is that it is a palate preference, right? So I don't smoke a lot of cigars either. I do absolutely enjoy a cigar.
What do you smoke?
Well, but listen,
hey, we're gonna move on to the next.
but when I smoke a cigar, quite honestly, if I'm not careful, I could smoke 2 or 3 cigars in one night, and that'll really do a number on you the next day if you're not a smoker. So I actually like, what Derek was talking about, complementary and contrasting styles. I actually like contrasting styles because I'm not a cigar smoker by trade. So basically what I'll do is I'll have a nice robust cigar, but I actually like a sour beer with it because it like just cuts the shit, and like I can taste the cigar, I can taste the beer. They're not melding together. But that's my preference, so but Darren is right, like smoked beers they're something,
I do have an ambition to make a mezcal beer though, because mezcal is just so different right now. I mean,
yeah, but that's a different kind of smoke too, right? Like that's
Pachuga especially. Pachuga just has those pineapple notes and these robust flavors that cut through the smoke, but still has that smoky edge to it. That I can't wait to get some either mezcal or Pachuga barrels and do something with that. But yeah, usually smoke doesn't work great. But I'm inspired to make a mezcal type beer.
Yeah.
I think we gotta Jeremy, we got a beer that we're working on right now. I think we're tasting next week to build the blend that may or may not be a great cigar beer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, it's a peated Scotch whiskey beer, and it's
something.
Yeah, if you want to build on some smoke, then a cigar is going to fit. But if you're smoking,
Line word is coming. So before we go on to the next question, I have to. He keeps throwing this into the comments on both Facebook and YouTube. I'd like to give a shout out to longtime member Terrence Mullins. Happy birthday, dude! We're glad you're here watching us, enjoying some beers. Happy birthday, Terrence!
Happy birthday, Terrence!
Here's a maybe it's not an easy one, but it's probably a quick one. Favorite East Coast beer city?
Easy.
Who wants to start? I don't know. I mean, you guys travel a lot. You're all over the place.
Someone said it was easy.
Waterbury.
Where is
it? Waterbury, Vermont, dude.
Yeah, Waterbury, Vermont. It's like you're like transformed in time there. It's insane. It's just like this little valley you hang out in, and it just you've got some really cool breweries, some really cool bars, and you've got access to Hill Farmstead and access to Alchemist and Lawson's and all that stuff's coming in there. It was such a good experience when I went. What was it, 7 years ago? It blew my mind as far as a cool city, and there were cars like 1920s Model Ts and all this crazy old cars coming through the town, and just like you felt like you were in a different world, but the beer was top notch.
Yeah, I think it's definitely DC for me. I love it so much that we put a brewery store there in DC. I don't know if you're aware, Mike or Derek. But we got a store there, and we'd love to help you guys sell some of your beer out of there if you're ever interested. You've seen my emails, I'm sure. But
the Wild West of cities right now.
Yeah, the Wild West of cities, yeah. But I think DC is great. We have some great folks out there working for us at the brewery that are helping build our membership on the East Coast and servicing that clientele. And then I think the food scene in DC is just awesome. It's just a great place to hang out and great place to be, and it's centrally located.
I would say I had a really good time in Richmond. Just going to Vale and Triple Crossing. I took a behind the scenes tour of a Stone over there. Yeah, it was, and also the Answer. I brewed with the Answer, so yeah, I thought that was a fun experience for me.
Absolutely.
I haven't been, but Portland, Maine looks pretty fun. It's high on my list of places to go to.
Yeah, one day for me
both
too.
From food and beer perspective, Portland, Maine looks pretty fun.
I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so Pottsville is easily the best beer city for me. It was 40 minutes from my house, and there's actually only one brewery there that I know of. It's Yuengling. So kind of an odd answer, but I grew up in the sticks a little bit, and Philly's not too far, and also not a bad beer city. There's some good stuff going down over there for a long time. That being said, I'm actually going to bid this group farewell. Guys, it was wonderful. This is a highlight of the week for many of us and many other people. I got to go start to make dinner for my kids and help my wife out a little bit. I got two little ones, but I think we got some good direction on a beer that we're going to make. It's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully everyone, before I was on, I know I was enjoying the stouts. Sticky Chunk is unbelievable. I mean, a beer is just top notch. Like, it's so good. And sweet beers for me, like I'm a lager guy, and everyone knows that, but that beer just, it really hits home. It's perfect. So anyway, thank you, everyone. I think Connor's going to jump back in. Daniel, thanks for making it all work, guys. I'll talk to you soon, and Derek and Mike will be in touch on that beer.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
So very last question. I'll just bring Connor in because he seems to be a fan favorite. So this is a very last question. Again, like, we keep saying this is a happy hour, but like 5 weeks in a row now, it's been happy hours. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at moving the conversations along. I thought this one was pretty interesting. I can't find it to pull it up on the screen, but the question was essentially like, and this is a brewer question, when we're making a beer, is the goal ABV or the goal taste? And how do we balance those two things, right? So like, are we shooting for an ABV or a taste? Like, what is more important, or are they a blend? Like, how do we, when we're creating beers, like, how does that fold into the mix?
It's flavor for me.
Flavor. Yep.
For us, it's utilizing ABV as a cutting element for the other treatments or the other ingredients. So if we want something that has really sweet, like coconut, vanilla, maybe nuts or so, that has kind of like a perceived sweetening element, we use ABV to kind of cut it so it's not overly sweet. So knowing that we have a coconut vanilla beer or something like that, we will kind of jack up the ABV to kind of have it a little bit more approachable.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, no matter what ABV you're at, finding a balance is key, but always for me, like flavor first, and then using the alcohol to match whatever flavor concept we're going for. But yeah, I think we're getting at it from the same way. Like, I don't know, a lot of what we have, unless it's like a collab or something like that, we're dealing with already existing barrel stock that we're blending. So we'll use certain elements of those to complement the flavor, but like it's flavor first for us, for sure.
Yeah, flavor's always been the driver for us. And most of our stouts will end around like 10.5, 11% that are not going into barrel. And we've been, lucky enough to have our barrel aged beers tested at Goose Island, and we're picking up, 2, 3, 4% out of barrel, which is awesome. I know your yeast was a little different than ours, Andrew.
Yeah.
And yours can tolerate a little bit more than ours can. But it's at the end of the day, we're trying to create a flavor. We're not just trying to create this boozy beer. Especially with all the pastry stuff we're making, right? The pastry stuff is driven by flavor.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out how to balance that out. And, again, a lot of that goes down to the base of what grain we're using to make sure that it's going to be either sweet or dry or roasty or not roasty. And that was one of the biggest changes we had was when we first had our stout recipe. It had a lot of roasted malt in it. But as we got deeper into coffee and we got deeper into vanilla, we realized that those things have a lot of roast to them, that we had to strip that out of the base grain. So it's just complementing those flavors of the layers you want to go for.
Yeah, I love when we can being able to, if it is, especially for non-barrel products, it's easier for us to do, but like basing the grain bill around what adjuncts we know we're going to be adding to it, which we are able to do occasionally. I don't think any of the ones that, the Hold the Spoon we were able to do that with for what we tasted today, but yeah, definitely like everything from roast percentages on down, residual sugars, like it's all about what you want the final beer to be, and whether you're either creating that to work with a specific flavor or you're dealing with already existing barrel stock to get it to that direction is kind of the fun bit, so to speak.
Cool, man. All right. On that note, Derek, Mike, thanks so much for coming on. Mike, I know it's pretty late for you.
It's all good. I got nothing else to do except the kids. So they're already sleeping, so we're all good. We can hang out all night.
Everybody that's watching right now, Moksa, Mikerphone, check them out. Great beers. Collab coming soon. Next week, we're going to be talking to Chef Brooke Williamson on the live stream. She just won the Tournament of Champions on the Food Network. She is the top chef winner. We're doing 3 collabs with her. It's going to be a pretty fun conversation about food, beer, wine, and how they all work together. So make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook. We're streaming everywhere we can, but Thanks again, guys. That was fun.
And one more thing, like guys, this turned as it warmed up, it is even better than before. And it was an honor to brew with you guys. It's been a highlight of my year last year to make sure that we got to hang out and brew, and I look forward to doing it again. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Mike, Derek, we love you both, man. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and I can't wait to execute this beer with your guys' blessing, and I'll follow up with you guys, and we'll get it cooking.
I'm really excited about this. It's going to be great.
Yeah, can't wait. This should be really good.
Yeah, even if it's not at a festival, it's so good to see you guys.
I miss you guys. I do. I miss you guys.
We are out.
Right. Cheers, fellas.